Welcome to the Women's March Canada podcast, making the equality of women in Canada the new norm. This is episode titled 25, and we're titling it 15 in Fairness. My name is Melissa Durrell, and I'm your host, inspiring, uniting, and leading the charge for the advancement of women across Canada. It's a bit of a tongue twister there, wasn't it, Marjorie? Our guest today is Marjorie-Ann Knight. And Marjorie, you are stepping up for some politics, aren't you?
I am. It took me a long time to make the decision, probably over the period of a year.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's get into it. First, I want to let everybody know. Now, you're running for the NDP in the Ontario provincial election. And the area that you're looking to represent is Cambridge. And one of the things you're advocating for is wage fairness and the resolution of issues plaguing families in the community, such as the hospital and school care and affordability of housing and public transportation, all parts of the NDP platform for sure. And you work for the House of Friendship, which is one of my favorite places. I'm actually in Waterloo region as well. And so I know the House of Friendship and the important work that they do. So that's fantastic. Now tell me, Marjorie, why did you decide to run for politics?
I spent the last 2 years organizing with the Fairness and 15 organization. Before that, I had been through some very interesting times. I started out with a great job, and unfortunately they moved it off, which meant that we all were made redundant. I could not replace that income. I ended up with a minimum wage job in precarious work in retail. And as a result, I lost everything. I lost my house, I lost my car, farmed out my kids, and went to live in a shelter at Bridges. And the whole time I'm at Bridges, I was working 6 days a week. And it was a very, very difficult situation. And I realized that, there is a case for the working poor. People have an idea in their mind as to who the working poor are. It's usually somebody who's lazy, who doesn't really want to work, somebody who's not educated, someone who just wants an easy way out. And I don't represent any of that. Mm-hmm. And when I was asked to speak on the behalf of the working poor at the Social Planning Council of Cambridge and North Dumfries at their poverty symposium, I spoke, and it kind of struck a chord with people. And people started to speak to me more and more about what their situations were like. And I realized, wow, there are a lot of us out there who are suffering in this way. And so I started to become encouraged to advocate with Fairness and 15. I went back to school at age 50, but you will not remember my age at the end of this. And I went back and I did a bachelor's in social work. And while I was there, I was doing my practicum with House of Friendship, and I helped out at their food bank and at one of their community centers. And I was hooked, very hooked, because now I am really able to reach out and help the people who were like me, and giving them a hand up to do something better with their lives. Amazing. And everybody said, run.
But you're stepping up. Now, I do want to, so for the viewers across Canada, Fairness, Fairness and 15 and Fairness is something that was brought forward by, I believe, the Liberal government to raise minimum wage. And they raised it, I think, by, was it 27%? From $11.50 to $14 as of January 1st in 2018, and it's going to $15 in 2018. Is that correct?
2019, in January of 2019, it will go to 15. And what happened was we basically beat them to death until they said that we would do it, because they were very much against it at first, and we kept going and going. But the people, we the people, as I like to call it, really needed more. We needed help. We needed a better wage. $11.40 could not do anything, not with the cost of food, not with the cost of rent. And the Liberals did the right thing in agreeing finally to move to this. The Workers' Action Center in Toronto, led by Dina Ladd, They trained us, they walked with us, they helped us, they did everything to get us to get to our government representatives to say, hey, we need this. And eventually they heard us. And that's where we are now. It's a wonderful thing.
So, I mean, it's really interesting because I speak to a lot of people who are activists and they're advocating for things. And you know, you don't always get what you ask for, but
No,
yeah, and you did. Now, I mean, I suppose that I talked to you a year and a half ago, I guess actually even last summer, you may have been confused. I mean, there was definitely some, there was some resistance, but talk to me a little bit about what it was like to be in that activist role as you saw things. I mean, it really ebbed and flowed, didn't it, last summer?
And it did. And is that the movement on a whole has been growing so fast, not just across Ontario, but then it started to go out west, it started to go back east, it started to go overseas, and everybody was on this thing of we need fairness, we need a real minimum wage. And I would be visiting our MPP repeatedly with different groups of people each time to say, listen, this is what we want, this is why we want, what are you going to do for us? And we didn't let up petition after petition. Every festival, every fair, every public event that happened out there, we were there. We were there with our tables. We partnered with other people like Living Wage, Waterloo, Social Planning Council, the unions, you name it, we got involved with them. And it just, the groundswell was huge. Mm-hmm. And it had come to the point really where you could not ignore it anymore. Mm-hmm. Because just the sheer volume of people coming and saying, hey, because at the end of the day, government works for us. Yeah. And we, the people, must be able to say, this is what we need. Yeah. And it was very good that they listened. And I must say our NDP party was always partnered with us through this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad to say that those that were in power at the day, which was the Liberals, finally saw the light and then moved forward to not only deal with the minimum wage, but to deal with the fairness in the workplace, the workers' laws, to make sure that people were treated fairly at work, that people were not just summarily dismissed, that things like temporary work gets reined in a little, more fairness for the workers, because we needed it.
What kept you going? Because I know, the small business, the chambers, there was a lot of people that were saying that this could be really difficult for our economy. And so when you were hearing things like that, what kept you going and on the same path?
I think one of the things that was really pointed for me is that there was no way we could go back. Yeah. There was only a path forward, because where we were at, it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And the cost at the end of the day, where we don't pay people a decent wage, where they can look after their families, is that as the taxpayers, as the country, we all are going to pay in one way or the other. Whether it's paying because people are in the shelters, whether we have to be putting them up at the hotel because the shelters are so full, whether or not we have to be feeding them, clothing them, transporting them, putting them in hospitals, whatever it is, at the end of the day, the cost is very, very high. When people are able to look after themselves, they will. When they can't, then the government is going to have to do it, and we all pay that cost. And it's huge. It's huge. So that's what kept me going, because stopping and going backwards, not an option. Not an option at all.
And would you say that, sorry, I'm just going to move because the sun's getting bright here. Would you say that, you said you had a lot of support. Did it grow as you talked to more and more people? Like, there's always that tsunami feel, right? Like where at the beginning it's sort of a bit of a wave, but then it really takes over. Did you ever get that feeling with this?
Yeah, that feeling was big, because you could watch the whole movement swell. Yeah. And it wasn't just here, it was everywhere. It was back in the States, it was here, they're talking about it in BC, they're talking it in Seattle, they're starting to talk it out on the East Coast. And it was like, wow, we're really doing something here. People are really responding. And it was so awesome, gratifying that people were coming together and going, yes, this is what we need change.
Tell me about some of the people that you met while you were doing this, because I imagine, 15 years ago, you would have met yourself. So who are some of the people that you had that opportunity to connect with?
I met a young lady from our region here who she struggled and struggled and struggled. I helped her with accessing education because she wanted to work. She didn't want to be on OW. She wanted to work. She went to school. She got her diploma. She, went out for interviews. We helped with childcare. We helped with everything we could help with. She went out and she got her job. And she was so thrilled to have this low wage job. Because it was a job, but it meant that she was supporting herself and her son. Mm-hmm. Her son is 5 and he got sick. He got very sick and he had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. And so she lost her job. Because these are the things that happen out there when people try. I have so many people like that who have tried and they try hard. And yet it's just 1 inch to not enough, or not enough help from those who hire and those who are in charge. No empathy, no help. And now and today, when we look at the Employment Standards Act and you have 10 days emergency leave, which we fought tooth and nail for, she would not have lost her job. Because she could have taken her emergency leave and looked after her child and still come back to work. So it's stories like that. It's the people who I sit with, and they desperately want to work. They want to work, but they can't, because if it's childcare, or if they have a child with special needs, or they just don't have enough. If they leave OW to do that, then they lose all the backing that they may have with this subsidized childcare, the medication, the assistance with the child. They lose that if they come off of OW. So it's almost like they're trapped. We want to get people back to work. And I've met so many people who are like, man, if I could just go back to work, I would love to go back to work. I want to work. I've had to be on OW myself, and it is the most demeaning experience, and I hated it. But I fell and I broke my ankle, and I was in precarious work, so if I couldn't work, I don't get paid, and the bills still go on. So I had to go on OW, and it's so demeaning, So from my experience, and I joined with other people who had similar experiences, and we walked together. And there are many, many stories I could tell you, but we would be here a long time.
Well, you know what? I totally believe that it's the stories that we remember, right? It's not the statistics, because we've known these statistics for years and we continue to gather them. But it's people that truly make, I think, that are the catalyst for change. And so it's their stories that we need to keep. And your story is exceptional as well. And so now you're moving into more of a political leadership role, which is really interesting. And with that comes this idea that, we still have to keep Ontario's economy rolling. And so how do you balance that very social side of social services side of who you are and what you want to see happen with, growing our economy?
I had a discussion today about that very same thing. And I was pointing out that, across the 2 years, I have visited many small businesses, as you can imagine, and spoken to them and had them come to our meetings and ask questions. And one of the things that I found was that many of them already were paying this $15. And so it wasn't that much of an issue of a raise of the minimum wage. And really for most people, the question was about the Employment Standards Act, what things had to change. There's always going to be a little pain in the change. We all know that. We have to accept that. Do we have to change perhaps our business model a little bit? Well, maybe we will have to. But at the bottom line, if you hire somebody and they're good, and they're really good at their job, you want to keep them. And if you want to keep them, you're going to make sure that they're happy. You're going to make sure that they have a decent livable wage, because I don't know how you look in the eye of somebody and know that, oh my goodness, they don't even have the bus fare, so they have to walk to work and they're late because they can't even take the bus to work. Yeah. So when we have employees who are engaged in their job, what happens is they take that job as if it is theirs. And they become very engaged. They want to make sure it profits, because if it profits, they profit. And what you will find is that the business itself will end up being built up. And then the other interesting thing is, when I have people who have a little spending money, where are they going to go spend it? As I love to tell people, we're not going to Bora Bora. Right. I would love to, but we're not going there because we can't afford it. We were going to spend on things here. We're going to spend things in the neighborhood ice cream shop. We're going to spend it in the neighborhood corner stores. We're going to spend it in the supermarkets. We're going to spend it at the clothing stores, the shoes places. We're going to go roller skating. We're going to go ice skating. We're going to be doing all kinds of things in our community. We're going to become more engaged in our community because we can. I remember, you know, it used to be Canada Day and everybody was, oh yeah, we're going to Canada Day. We're going to, my children never went because I couldn't afford to go. And if we went, there's no bus to come back. It's too far to walk. We were stuck, so we couldn't go. Now, you know, things are a little better. We can go and participate in things that happen in our community. And that's how you build community, and that's how you build business. And once you have a great working population that's healthy and is engaged in their work, there's sky's the limit. We can do it. We have many examples. When you go to, you know, the Better Way Alliance and you look at the stories of people like Grosh, I mean, you understand how much they have grown their business and how they did some changes and how it worked. And I think people need to look closer at that. And instead of going, oh my God, I can't do this or I can't do that, it's going to be too hard. Stop, take a breath, look at what works and see how we can get it done. Because at the end of the day, we'll all be way better off.
Do you find that it'll be more women that are affected by the 15 and fairness?
I think women and racialized peoples. I'll tell you, when I was an executive manager with Sandals Resorts, for instance, and I worked with the Wyndham in Kingston, which is their premier business hotel, which, I mean, the Secretary General of the UN came to my hotel 3 times a year, knew me by name. Mm-hmm. But when I came to Canada, I couldn't even get a job in a Comfort Inn because I had no Canadian experience, which really is just an excuse. Right. I could have done the job hopping on one leg, tied a hand behind my back and blindfolded. But these are the things that they do. So often racialized people and women are the ones who lose. And we have so many families like that who desperately needed a raise to be able to look after their families. I know I did. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we are affected terribly by that.
Yeah. Obviously you're a feminist. What's your definition of feminism? I'm curious.
I grew up in a house where I had a mom who was the executive. She worked with the UN from time to time. She was a founding member of UN Habitat. She worked with the World Bank. She did sustainable development, you know, and her friends were the same. So these women were jet setting all across the world to all these conferences going here and there. And the word was, you can be anything you want to be. And you are the pilot of your ship. And if you hit a wall, you find a way around it and go. And feminists are the ones who not only find a way around the wall, but they put their hand back and help others up to join them. I always say to people when I was in my job and they would say, what do you say to your employees? And I said, you know what? I don't intend to be in this same job in 10 years from now, maybe not even 5 years from now. But when I leave this job, you need to be here. So I need to start training you from now so that when I step out of here, you step in. Because you have to mentor, you have to bring them up. Because no one else is going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. And that's what I'm about.
Love it. Is that why you march?
That's why I march. For my grandmother, my mother, my great-grandmother who died at 104, my grandmother who died at 105, my mother that sadly died at 65, and myself. and my children, my girls, because there's a legacy of strong women in my family. And I've been taught to always reach back and bring up, to mentor, to step forward, to never accept no, to find ways around, to keep going, because rolling over is not an option. You have to go forward. And that's why I march.
Are you campaigning at this point? Are you enjoying it?
Some days I feel a little whelmed because I am such a background kind of person. I get things going and organizing, get people out there, and over the last couple of years, I've had to get used to standing up in front of a microphone and standing up in front of a crowd and speaking and things like that. But it's still kind of strange, and you have to stand outside and go, hi, let me introduce myself. It feels so strange, and different people wanting a piece of you here and there. So it's different, and it's something I'll have to get used to, being a public person. But I it's necessary, so we roll with it.
It's so important that women step forward into these kind of positions.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you've done it. What's the first thing you want to do if elected?
If elected, the first thing I want to do is to make sure that the laws that we pushed forward for 15 and fairness actually get passed, and that the ones that perhaps did not get passed, but we feel strongly that should be a part of it, then I'm going to look about seeing how we can get those involved also.
You're amazing, Marjorie. I really enjoy talking to you. Can you tell people how they can find you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those things?
I am on Facebook. I am on Twitter, and it's Knight, MJA Knight. That's my Twitter handle. Right now, what's my Facebook? It's with the Cambridge riding of the NDP. They're doing everything because they've kind of moved me out of doing all my Facebook stuff. And I don't have an Instagram, but I do have an email that people can please feel free to message me. I still have not managed to have them wrest that out of my hand yet. But it's knight.marjorie@ontarionDP.ca. And I'm always happy for people to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Our guest, Marjorie-Ann Knight. So great.
That's right. But my mother only called me that when she was mad at me, so.
We're not mad. We're thrilled that you're stepping forward.
Yes.
And thanks to everyone that's tuned in to listen. Your comments are welcome and encouraged. Please subscribe to our Women's March Canada channel and receive updates every time we upload a new podcast, which is usually on Fridays. Our mission across Canada is to stand together in solidarity with our partners and children for the protection of our rights, our safety, our health, and our families, recognizing that our vibrant and diverse communities are the strength of our country. This is the Women's March Canada podcast. You can find us at Women's March CDA on Twitter and our website, womensmarchcanada.com. I'm Melissa Durrell, and I'm wishing you a great day. There we go.